By the way, I'm glad to see everybody got the "Let's all wear black" memo.
We did. Look at us.
Yeah, we're all kind of branded except Mitch.
Black is my favorite wardrobe color. I'm very much into type, I guess.
Yeah.
How Johnny Cash of you.
Yeah.
Boy, can I stand in that shadow? Wow.
I wouldn't try.
Oh man. Okay. So welcome to the NerdBrand Podcast, everybody. I'm your host, Jason. That's John. That's Mitch. And this is our guest today, Diana. Yes, her name's Diana, like Wonder Woman. It's amazing. But yes. Diana is from SEMrush. See how I got it right.
You nailed it. Great job.
Yes. So this episode, we're discussing how social media has changed during the pandemic. COVID has changed how we use social media, and users have split off into niche networks that align more with their interests. And this has impacted advertising, and the changes, they're not over. So that's sort of the gist of today's episode. So we'll be talking about, obviously, SEO. We'll be talking about social media, and should be a great conversation. And we're going to talk about some nerd stuff.
Nice.
So, but first, we're going to let our guest introduce herself and just promote your wares.
Well, yes, I'm Diana, and also known as Wonder Woman, also known as Princess. You know, whenever people ask me how do they say my name or spell my name, those are my two go-to explanations. Wonder Woman more recently, though, because she's had this resurgence in our culture. But I have been a digital marketer for 15 years next month. I cannot believe that. And my background is in SEO and PPC for a lot of that time. And in the last 4 years, I've been in the social media world, in the email world, kind of doing a little bit of everything. And then I was brought on board with SEMrush during the pandemic and joined their social media team. I'm now part of the SEO team handling the social media, but that just means I get to talk to friends like you about SEO. So it's a really sweet job. Very interesting transition during the pandemic, since that is kind of a theme we're talking about today. And I love wine. And I live in Texas.
Yeah.
I do like nerdy things too.
It's just Texas just keeps coming up. We're just, we got 3 Kentucky boys and a Texan. That's fine.
That'd make a great movie.
If that helps, I'm an East Coast girl by heart, but just moved to Texas during the pandemic.
Well, we're glad to have you here, and we're excited about this. We know a lot of people are going to they're going to listen to this show just because you said SEO. And putting SEO on the title.
SEO, social media, nerd stuff, go.
Yeah, and then everything's just going to latch SEO, and it's just going to be like, yeah. But we're going to talk about a little bit like what that is. You've been putting out some great content on LinkedIn lately. I want to highlight the latest one that made me giggle this morning. As soon as I opened up LinkedIn, there you were, like throwing sparklies and stop optimizing, stop researching, stop reporting, take a brain break, friends, because we made it to the weekend. Have some wine. Cheers.
That is me in a nutshell. Yeah, well, I mean, as we started, before the podcast started, it's Friday when we're recording this. It's been a very long week. I feel like, especially in these times, every week, it is a celebration to get to Friday, through the workday, through teaching your kids at home, through staying still in quarantine, still or not, or whatever you're doing. Who knows? It's just a miracle to get to Friday sometimes.
It is. And running a business and, trying to hit your goals and so much unpredictability. I mean, it's been
every day is different and it's exhausting.
Yeah. John and I, we've had our busy week. We've been hammering a lot with accounts, account management, account sales, things like that. And so we've had a couple wins this week. So we're happy to bring on a new e-commerce client. We just had a really great call with another e-commerce client, and that one's going to entail probably some video ads and actually video production and some other things. But the e-commerce client we got earlier this week is going to be really, really fun because it's hot sauce. Everybody loves hot sauce.
You get samples?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Oh, he's all about that. He's it's bourbon hot sauce too. So Yeah.
There's some funsies to be had.
Yeah, there's a lot of funsies to be had. So yeah, samples. He loves samples, man. He will show up. I'll say this. I got
marketers love samples too.
Yeah, I got like a small sample of the hot sauce and I got a little bit bigger one. But these two guys, he has salsa as well. And they got the salsa. I didn't get to try the salsa, so I can't really comment on the taste of that. But
It was
good stuff. Good
Just
stuff.
trust us, maybe we'll invite you over next time we get a sample.
Or send it on to Texas and we can have like a Texas tasting.
Yeah. So, but anyway,
so fun.
I want to kind of let's roll into what we want to do first. Let's roll into the brand bit, John.
All righty. The topic of discussion is Nike, big name brand. They're opening a new program in 15 stores around the country for a brand extension sort of called Nike Refurbished. And they're taking returned and gently worn shoes and they're fixing them back up and putting them back on the shelf. So I know they've always, computers. Yeah, they've always had issues with, people reselling things. And I think that's one reason they're doing it. The other is obviously we know that brands are getting scrutinized more and more and more about responsible production and environmental concerns and things like that. So it's an interesting attempt by them to hit that secondhand market, kind of right in the gut. I was just doing some research. Interestingly, the secondhand market is a $64 billion industry. That kind of blew my mind. That's
for shoes.
Wow. Okay. Y'all want to gather up some old sneakers and try some things?
Now you can walk a mile. You can actually walk a mile in some shoes now.
I knew that was coming, and I was like, Mitch is gonna do that joke.
We're gonna edit.
You're welcome.
I didn't mean to cut the punchline off in half, though. Sorry.
That's okay. The listeners are like, we're not ready for dad jokes.
I'm falling into type again.
Subsequently, I have told my dad all about this podcast because I think he will really enjoy it. So I was telling him all about you guys.
He's probably right in our demographic.
Anyways, John, you were saying like refurbished sneakers from Nike. I will add, for those watching on YouTube, I will add some imagery and cut in some things like that so you can kind of like see this. For our audio listeners, imagine.
Yeah,
if you don't know what the Nike brand logo looks like, right. It's like one of the most famous logos of all time.
Yeah.
Sure. Yeah. Well, there's some others, it kind of blows my mind that people study everything, that there's statistical analysis of literally every single thing. I was just looking, 40% of Gen Z shoppers said they bought secondhand clothes and shoes in 2019. The millennial category, however you define these things, was at 30%. So, and I can imagine, given the economic woes of 2020, that's gone up, and that secondhand market is going nuts. Between, you got the rise of Facebook Marketplace, and you still got Amazon, and you've got eBay, and all those players that still play in that market. Craigslist has taken a dive, in my opinion, but who knows? But it's an interesting market to think of, and you got a big brand, and a lot of big brands that have those refurbishing programs. My last laptop was from Acer, and they had a certified refurbished program that I got a great laptop for 6 years for half the price. And I look for that kind of thing these days. I don't know if you all do.
Anyways, thank you, John, for the nerd news. Man, see, we used to have this in reverse where John, my chair keeps dropping, where John would do something like the nerd news and Mitch would do the brand bit. But anyways, thank you, John, for the brand bit. Go Nike. But Mitch has got some nerd news, and I have to say, Mitch, before we start talking, I have to warn everybody, Mitch is probably going to say something that's very close to spoilery.
No. I will avoid any spoilers. I've actually got two bits.
Okay.
I've got one on I want to talk video games a little bit, because that's a huge part of nerd culture, because video games cross into a lot of different fandoms because of the different genres.
Yeah, a multi-billion-dollar market or something like that too.
Right. Well, a lot of the talk in recent years has been discussion about stagnation in the console gaming market. But I read an article this morning that kind of makes me wonder, is it really that stagnant? Because apparently the PS5 has become the fastest selling console in US history. Now I tried to find what those exact numbers are, but I couldn't find. Everybody's saying that, but they're not saying what the actual numbers are. But it's the fastest growing console in US history. And think about it. We've had the pandemic over the last year, but it still has broken records for being the fastest selling console. And think of how many consoles there have been, going all the way back to the original Nintendo machine. So that, to me, that
sports where like every season someone has like the biggest contract ever. So I feel like it's, they say that, but like, is it just, is it like accounting for like inflation when Nintendo was first released and things like that?
Well, it's interesting because it breaks down in different ways, because you've got the fastest selling console, but there's also, despite this PS5 record, the Nintendo Switch has continued to reign as the best selling hardware platform.
Okay.
So
I'm a Nintendo guy, so yeah.
So you've got different metrics. I mean, yeah, more PS5 units were going out the door in a shorter period of time, but overall, the Switch
volume. I mean, it may not be
right.
It may not be leading the pack there. Nothing else is selling right now. Nothing's been released.
Yeah. So I thought that was interesting. In a supposedly stagnant segment, it's still making. And just to give you some idea of how much money is involved here, March video game hardware dollar sales as a whole were 47% higher than they were in March of last year, and set a March record of $680 million. Year-to-date hardware spending has totaled $1.4 billion, which is an increase of 81% over last year.
Yeah, earlier I just said multi-billion-dollar industry, and everybody, I know people out there probably like, Jason, that's a little high. But after what you just said,
So tell me where the stagnation is.
Right.
Well, I wonder if the stagnation is like in manufacturing because of the pandemic, and lots of industries like what you guys were just saying, like no new other consoles have come out. I'm just wondering if that's if that's where the halt is, or the pause.
Yeah.
Well, I think one of the things they've talked about is how video game graphics have gotten so much better over the last with each successive console. The graphics, the visuals have gotten so much richer and so much better and so much more refined. But it's almost like they've reached a point now where, of course, I say this and they'll come up and do something that even tops it. But it's like, how much better can they now get? It's like with laptops and computers now, chip speed has gotten so fast. It's like the next milestone is like, okay, but realistically, from a day-to-day life quality of life standpoint, how much better is that next chip actually going to be? Because you haven't seen a lot of more innovation in the chip side of things in computers for a long time, and I think that's
there's a shortage right now because of the pandemic.
Well, yeah, because of the pandemic
industry.
So it's like, what is better? How much better is better? I think one of the issues with gaming right now is just they need to concentrate on quality of game experience and quality of video game development, and how good of a game is it? How immersive is it? What kind of quality experience do I have playing that game? Maybe concentrate more on that and less on, this chip's faster, the graphics are so much better, and it's 4K, 8K, whatever the K of the moment is.
Where does VR play into this? Like, I mean, that's got to be the next iteration, right?
Mm-hmm.
I mean,
well, it's there, it's off the shelf. I mean, you can.
But as far as quality and
it's been out there for a while. I've tried it. It's not for me. I get motion sick.
Yeah.
So it doesn't really work too well for me. I like sitting in front of a nice, decent sized screen with my controller and playing that way. But I'm not sure VR has quite taken off maybe as much. It's almost more of
it's one of those things that's been taken off for 10 years.
Yeah. Right.
Everybody's been waiting for that breaking point. And like, Facebook's been doing their thing with Oculus and all that stuff, and people trying to release augmented reality glasses and all that good stuff that just didn't latch on quite as much as I think everybody expected to.
Mm-hmm.
You almost wonder if people need that. They kind of like that little level of separation that you get from being in front of a screen with a controller in your hand and being able to occasionally, kind of back yourself out of it.
Mm-hmm.
I wonder if maybe that has something to it. That's just me talking, but for me, I like that being able to sit it down for a minute, come back to it if I need to, and not be completely, totally immersed in that. If the game is good enough, you're immersed in it and you're living in that moment anyway.
So today's guest with me from SEMrush, Diane is here to share some knowledge about some SEO and some other things. Talk about that. So let's get it. Maybe we should get into that on the show. I should move
I
on.
could talk about movies all day long if that's what we really want.
Yeah, I mean, like you said, it's Friday. Let's have fun. But I do want to kind of bring up, because it is SEO. I don't know. People are going to be like, okay, can you guys stop about the Batman stuff and talk about that? So SEO, tell us how SEO and how and why content creation is so important in regards to SEO.
Yeah. And it's a lot harder nowadays because everyone is online, but SEO is, the full name is search engine optimization. So it's working with your website to get it to rank high in the search engines when someone does a search related to, your products or services or something. So there's a lot of ways you can affect the website itself with like content marketing. There are tactics off the page, like building up links from other websites linking to you. Those are called backlinks. All of that helps to kind of build up authority that you're cool, your Google and Bing should like you, that other people like you. And that is how you can affect your website's placement when someone does a search. So that is Diana's definition of SEO.
That's the high
It's
level.
a lot more complex than that.
It is. That was a hard question, because
Yeah, it is.
you can't get caught up in the details. You immediately lose people. But I mean, that's I think the key word you said is authority. It's making your brand and your website presence authoritative, kind of in the context of what you want to be an authority about, right?
Right. And so you have to make those decisions when you do have a website. What do I want to be an authority on? To me, the antithesis of that is Amazon. Amazon is not really like an authority on anything because it sells everything, like even books, even what it started with, but yet it ranks everything, everywhere. Oh, of course. And it's more difficult now because, back a million years ago when I first started doing this, it was still a question like, do I need a website? But now, everyone has a website. That's where everyone starts, looking for and seeking information or the buying process or whatever it is. That's where they start, is with a search on a search engine or social media. So being present is in your favor.
Mm-hmm.
I liked it earlier how you said it was like, that's how Google and Bing know you're cool. And I'm like, they need to replace the phrase like domain authority and all that. You're cool.
Right.
But I think I just dated myself because who says cool anymore?
Jason said tight just a minute ago.
Okay. That's true. I did. Yeah. Sometimes the 90s come out of me.
Yes. Come on.
I blame the mid 90s for that. I think that was the mid 90s. I don't know. Anyways, but yeah. And this is for everybody to kind of have an opinion on, like, what are some SEO mistakes that can be made?
I would first start by saying expectations. SEO is a very slow process.
Exactly.
And
Methodical.
you cannot pay more money to higher in the rankings. It takes work. And it takes consistency, and it takes work and patience and time. And just because you launch your website and you launch an SEO campaign does not mean you are going to even be on page 4, 5, 6, or 7 anytime soon. It takes strategy, and it's not brain surgery, but it's not easy. And it needs expectations from the get-go need to be set. I think I got a little bit of a reputation back in my agency days for being kind of the level setter, because I was just blunt. Like, it's going to take this long. Like, it just does. And the search engines have a lot of websites to crawl. Yours isn't Amazon, so it's not going to crawl you every day. Sorry, but that's okay. And as long as you understand that and your expectations are set and you have a daily to-do list of how you can keep things going in a forward direction, then you're going to see results. It's like getting fit. You're not going to work out for a week and be an Instagram model. Like, it doesn't work that way.
Right. I think that's the expectations is a big one. And I think people get into like link building and they want to, realistically, they want their website to rank high, and it's like, just make it happen.
Yep.
No, you have to do something
Well, and I think the expectation of doing more faster, for some reason, like in this instant result, like culture that we have, I think can we put out more content? Can we build more links? Can we do this to make this happen faster? And actually doing more faster or a lot at a time can actually hurt you. And in one of the agencies I used to work at, when we would have clients that would have a redesign, we would actually put SEO kind of on pause for a month or two, because we didn't want to do too many changes like all at once, because that kind of freaks out the system and they don't know you anymore. Like, the search engines don't know you anymore. So doing too much too fast can actually hurt your progress. So that's why I always think the O in SEO is organic, which means natural. So you have to do things at a natural pace, and gaining 6,000 backlinks in a month is not natural, unless you've just released like the greatest case study, ever known to man, then okay, but that's probably not going to happen. So your content needs to be on that flow too. Like, it's not natural for you to release 7 pieces of content in 3 hours and flood the system. Like, that's not natural. So, another expectation thing, you don't have to do more right up front. Like, it could actually hurt you. So take a breath. It's Friday. You're okay.
Yeah, it's on. You need
on Monday. It's all right.
To me, it sounds like the key to being successful where SEO is concerned is you have to have a strategy, be committed to implementing that strategy, be patient, be methodical, and be committed.
Right. And the strategy is not, let's do SEO. That's not the strategy. That's not a strategy. There is a lot more in it, including like understanding your audience and their personas, doing solid keyword research that isn't just the most keyword volume keyword you're looking for. That's not a strategy. Starting a blog, that is not a strategy. Those are all pieces of a strategy, but so like, there's more to it than let's do SEO today.
Yeah.
I think so many people focus on, they know kind of what their core service is, and they want to rank for that term. And it's like, they don't think about every single search query being it's a different competition. It's a different, auction, so to speak. And you've got to play it differently. You can't necessarily go after that high competitive, high volume keyword right out of the gate. Your website, you gotta pick some mid-tier key terms that you can actually realistically compete for, build up your authority, and then you can kind of move on to the bigger plays.
Right. And what keywords is really serving your audience? So I think the term search engine optimization actually needs to be rebranded as people optimization. And that goes into keyword research too, because yes, what services you offer. Say you're an HVAC company, you offer AC repair, heat repair, pretty broad keyword phrases. But someone who is, and I will speak from experience because I went through that Texas winter storm a month and a half ago, and I did not have power for 4 days or water for 7 days. So, I'm Googling like how to flush my toilet without running water. So if you could show up for that and build that relationship when someone is in need of something, that to me is a stronger connection in this saturated world, whether you're talking about search engines or social media, than just showing up for HVAC repair San Antonio. Like, there is more to it now about that relationship connection. And if you can be there for someone in a moment of need, if you can answer a question with your content, whether that is words or video or an infographic or something, then that to me is a stronger thing than just ranking number 1 for HVAC repair. Because that could go away tomorrow.
Yeah.
All you need is an algorithm change.
Yeah. Well, if you're listening to this right now and you were like, I want an answer on SEO, well, you just got it, and you got it from a pretty authoritative place, everyone. So you're welcome.
In a nutshell.
I think the last thing I'll add from an expectation standpoint is, again, kind of on people are like, well, how do I actually build that authority?
Mhm.
How do I actually build the links? And I'm like, well, you have to do something worth writing about. It's PR. I think a lot of people, block those off and separate them, when realistically, one of the best strategies to build authority for your website is to have a very solid PR strategy, and have other influential people in your industry writing about you. Get those high authority outlets, the Wall Street Journals, or even the local Business First type of publications in each city writing about you. I mean, even if you don't get a link, right, you can maybe clear up a myth. I don't know. Even if you don't get a link, isn't there some research suggesting that Google still looks at that mention in an authoritative article and gives you kind of a positive?
I do. I have two thoughts on that too. So here's a little tip, kind of going off of what you're saying about getting the people who are already seen as authoritative to write about you. Write about them, include them in your content, because then that increases your chances of them sharing it with their network. So interview them, get quotes from them, cite their statistics, cite their original work, build them up too with your own thoughts around it. And that is a piece of content that is unique, interesting, and has authority built into it, and will get shared naturally through that other person's network. The other thing too, how you were saying about mentions that are not necessarily linked back to you, that's part of the search engines building up context around you. And authority basically, AKA, means context. They have to have context around you to understand. Because when we say authority in SEO, we don't mean you need to be Dr. Fauci to have authority. Like, you can be that, you don't need that kind of name recognition to be authoritative. You have to have unique content that is backed up. That you can have a rant blog all you want, but that's not what's gonna rank. And that's fine. But to write authoritative content, you have to have, like, statistics really help, quotes help, it being unique, it being an interesting topic with a new take on it. All of those help build up the SEO equivalent of authority and tell the story of you. It is that context around you that the search engines are a lot better about understanding now than back in 2006 when I first started, and all you needed to do was enter those keywords and there you were. They just assumed you were telling the truth, and that's how you got to rank. And now they understand the much bigger story around you and your business or your brand. And so that's how you can kind of build up this contextual authority in the search engines.
Yeah, it's interesting you mentioned about, like, John, you bring it up, if you just mention them or talk about them in WordPress, it made me think about pingbacks and trackbacks. That's a part of WordPress still, with the blogging engine on it. And so basically, if I write an article and then somebody else like links to me or mentions me, WordPress to WordPress will go like, hey, they're talking to one another. WordPress is, ecosystem loves that in of itself. It kind of reminds me of that. I mean, you can link to them. I don't know if the mentioning piece works in WordPress. As sophisticated, obviously, as Google, but
Or SEMrush.
Yeah, there's SEMrush. Yeah. And, and it's like, it's worth it, because we've had other WordPress blog site owners, discuss us or say something. And I've seen that. Now, typically I've turned that off because I just don't want a lot of that, because part of me is always concerned that that may be a toxic link back or something. I don't really know them. So they may be just trying to ride on the coattails of whatever we got. And as I've noticed over the years of blogging, like, I just had a blog post that hit into, I don't know, John, what did it land into? Did it land into the facts part? It was the turnkey websites post that I wrote.
People also ask questions.
Yeah. So I landed into that. I didn't plan on that. I just wrote a blog post about, like, don't do turnkey websites, and here's why. And I did that probably a year ago. Like, you talk about being patient. Like, I really didn't, like, it was a post that I wrote to just be like, don't do that. I was just trying to be organic and honest about that. And then we saw, I don't know, about 3 months ago, our traffic just spiked. And, I was talking with John and I was like, what did you do? Because these are chief marketing officers. So I'm like,
It's working.
Yeah. What did you and Camaria do? And he's like, it's not my fault. Blame me.
He didn't even take the credit. Good job.
Does anyone ever really know what they do?
Yeah.
Not an SEO.
You kind of try to go back and use tools like SEMrush and Google Analytics to be like, I don't know what I did there, but it seems cool.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I was purposeful on the term turnkey websites. I was purposeful on the title, writing the thesis in the first paragraph. So, I mean, I was like, not just blah on the internet. Right.
Yeah.
And I was thinking like, okay, maybe I'll get a featured snippet because I didn't really find one. So I actually did do all of that work,
Nice.
but I didn't do it in the intent that it would work. I'll be honest, I didn't. I wrote it because I was like, this has got to, I think that it's
That's
something
valuable to people. That's that's the key,
Right.
right?
And
Yeah.
in your benefit right now, the people also ask section has gained a lot more momentum. But I also think the phrase turnkey site has gained a lot more momentum because I remember I've always heard people call it like templated sites, but I think like the actual terminology has kind of risen to the surface a little bit more now. So maybe there's just a higher search volume for it too. And because you are this post from a year ago, like there's that authority that it's had a chance to kind of build up some stuff. And so maybe that's also why they liked you.
Yeah, it could be because we come across in our world, like a lot of people buy commercial WordPress themes because they are ready-made websites. They are, in my opinion, there's a turnkey website. Okay, it's got some stock photos. You just need to slap your copy on there if you've written some stuffs about you. Problem is when people start to install that and put that together, they realize that demo and their site with their stuffs doesn't look the same. It's lipstick on a pig, and so they end up like sort of like just rolling with it because they don't really know what else to do and they can't afford professional services. But regardless of the fact that, well, I just need something to get started. Yeah, but you've sort of done some damage because that stock photo is everywhere. I just had a friend reach out to me. He's got a
hurt your brand identity for sure.
Mm-hmm.
Oh yeah, a friend of mine. He's got a nonprofit, and it's he's opening up other chapters, and he serves in the Coast Guard. And his website I think has a bunch of galleries and stock photos, and I'm like, get rid of that, because it came over from the commercial theme that he got. And
I have a special place in my heart for nonprofit websites.
Yeah, and the performance.
It's hard work.
The performance though too. That's the other thing. Like I did a demo and sent him a video email, and I was like, I'll let him watch the video buffer every 0.5 seconds. Like this looks like a good produced video, but I can't watch it. Put it on YouTube and embed it. Don't put it in your site on your server because you probably have a cheap hosting platform and they aren't going to give you those resources. And that's going to affect, search engine score.
Yeah, it affects load speed, definitely.
Yeah. So, and with Google Core Web Vitals coming out, we got a blog post on that we wrote, I don't know, probably in April. Yeah, our web designer developer Laura Burnside wrote it, and I know that I'm kind of watching that one to see what's going to happen with it, with that change coming out next month for Google saying like this is now a major factor for your site. And then John wrote one about marketing retainers, and I'm waiting on that one because everybody's now starting to like, okay, I need stuff so I can get out there now. Everything's opening. And then, Mitch wrote one a while back about branding and things like that. So we've got a couple of what I feel like are cornerstone pieces. And so we have our own little maybe SEO work to do since now that we're seeing that those pieces are starting to shine. But man, it took us, like to your point, it's expectations. It took us months to figure this out, to get to this point that those articles are the ones that work out of all the other blog posts we've written.
Right. Well, and it doesn't mean those other blog posts won't work, but maybe that's where you focus your SEO energy now that you have some, data on the others. Maybe there's a little bit more, maybe you can pull a Nike and refurb some of those posts and get those some traction too.
Oh yeah, that's the total plan. I mean, and it's not to say that we don't know how to blog here at NerdBrand. We do. We've all been doing it for a very long time. we've been
none of
this show.
none of us suffer from a lack of words to say. I'll say that much.
Which is why we do a podcast, because very early on, I was like typing up all these blog posts, and I know that they need to be very informative and they can't be thin. And I was like, we can do a 1 hour show on a podcast, and I've done that before. So that's kind of why we did the podcast, because this information is just, you can sit and listen to it with your headphones in your office while you're doing something else, and you don't have to necessarily read it. And if you want a transcript of it, okay, go to YouTube. We're on YouTube. And if you could please go to YouTube and like and subscribe, that would be great, so we can get a vanity URL. Otherwise, you can find NerdBrand at NerdBrand Agency everywhere on the internet as far as our handle for social media. See what I did there, John? I got it.
You did a good job. Great job.
I did it. Yeah. That's how we segue to at NerdBrand, like just flat out breakneck, just turn right. Or left, depending on how this screen translates for those watching.
Sometimes down.
That's true.
Oh, okay. Who wants to read top reasons people use social media, since we kind of moved off into that a little bit?
Go for it. What's the first one on the list?
To fill up spare time and be entertained, like this show. Are you entertained? If somebody's here's got to know that.
Please don't actually answer. We don't need the truth. That was a rhetorical question.
I think obviously the big theme of another big theme of what we're doing here is how the pandemic impacted the use of social media. And I think the reasons that people use it are pretty much the same, but we've obviously seen a drastic escalation in how many people are using it, the types of features and things that they're getting more comfortable with.
Yeah.
Everybody's been trapped in their house looking for more and more entertainment and ways to relax, and between the pandemic, the political stuff, the election, all that, the social movements and all that, I think that escapism trend has definitely, skyrocketed. So,
Well, and I think it's been our people substitute. And even though people are the crux of social media, we haven't been able to go into the office and talk to people about political things or vaccines or our spouses, even, or our kids or whatever. Like we've had such a lack of human interaction and a big shift in. We're used to going into the office. We're used to having lunch with our coworkers. We're used to, and those people becoming our friends and having relationships in that way. And so I think social media has become a crux of connecting with people, even staying connected with who you already know, but expanding those networks because you have the world at your fingertips now. Entertainment and news. We have. And I think at the same time where we're like cutting the cord on cable and things in that regard, social media has also been really strong in taking a little bit of that as far as like why people will use social media, especially with things like Instagram Reels. And I say TikTok, but TikTok's not really like long enough for it to like take away from TV. But, things like that. I think social media has kind of been an all-in-one thing. It's been a really strong evolution, but it's also, there's been problems in that too. People are listening to other people about things like politics, people who have no reason to be, you're expressing your opinion and people are taking that as fact. So we saw a lot of that happening during the pandemic and the election and things like that. And so it's been kind of a slippery slope in like the news world of how social media is affecting society.
Yeah, that was a big part of the. Oh, sorry, John, what?
I was just saying, it's a double-edged sword that, you have this freedom of information flowing, and you
have this freedom of speech, and you should have a space to express your opinions, whether people would agree with them or not. You should have this space to do that. But we're in this weird, we're like hate speech and fake news. We're kind of facing all of these really negative issues, yet social media is meant to be a connector and a space of speech. So it's tough. And I would not want to be on the board making those kinds of decisions, because I understand, like, obviously I do not support hate speech, but I understand like the freedom of speech aspect of our world and our lives. But if you can't vent to your friends, maybe like you have a barbecue and your friends come over and that's where you share your opinions. We don't have that right now.
Right.
We have the internet.
Yeah.
So it's just become this bigger space. And all of these negative things happened before social media. I mean, that people talk all the time. People have these opinions all the time.
Yeah.
But social media is now this this world facing platform for you to say whatever the heck you want.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, I think
there's a general rule in human behavior, just be nice. Like it's not a lot of effort to be a good person, right? To try to be a decent human being. If you can apply that everywhere, and including online, because social media, I remember I got into Facebook 2005. One thing that I learned was people seem to forget manners when they get on there, because there's that disconnect digitally, because you're not in the room with them. You're not face to face, because nobody would say half the stuff over the last 20 years digitally face to face to somebody, because they get like thumped on the head for it physically. But yeah, I kind of like, when you brought that up, I kept thinking about that. I was watching where they had the CEO of Google, Amazon, Facebook, and Twitter in front of the Senate, asking them a bunch of questions. And the whole thing about that, and I read the initial meeting notes of that, and the statement read like a comic book intro movie. They were concerned that these platforms would basically subvert mainstream media platforms and their voice and everything. And I'm like, no, it's just another voice. But I gotta give it to the guy that owns Twitter, man, because he just had this. He started out wearing just a t-shirt, and he's just kind of like, why am I here? And then all of a sudden, about halfway through, his background changed, and he put on a business jacket. So you just, I was just like, that's Jack Dorsey. It's like he just didn't.
I think what's been interesting is I think people have come to realization where social media is concerned, because when it first all launched onto the scene, people thought, oh, look, these companies out of the good grace of their heart are giving us a great playground to play in, and there's no strings, and there's no labels, there's no boundaries, and we can do whatever we want. But people have now come to learn these are companies. These are owned by people, and it belongs to them, and they make the rules. If you're going to play in their sandbox, you're going to have to play by their rules.
Right.
It's not a public utility. It's not a public park, for example. Right. No, Facebook is owned by these people. They set the rules for how you operate in it. And good or bad, for better or worse, if you're going to play in their sandbox, you have to play by their sandbox rules. I think people have become jarringly aware that that's the case. And I was like, oh, yeah. So this isn't like, just walking out into the public square, because it's not public. It's owned by somebody, and it belongs to them, and they make the rules.
You have to be aware of the rules of the platform that you're participating on if you're publishing content to it, because you don't own it. The only one you own is your own website. And you can sort of put on there what you want. There are obviously common sense limitations when it comes to certain things, but so there's that.
Kind of touching on social and, not the personal use and the consumer use, but well, touching on the consumer use, how did, obviously everybody had to pivot really quickly to do curbside pickup, and the hours changed, and are you open? Are you not open? Did you all, personally or any statistics on how social media kind of, swam into that pool and filled a need that it kind of filled beforehand? Of course, people looked at social media to kind of verify that you were a good business, yada, yada. It became like the primary communication platform, right?
You're exactly. Yeah, that's what I was going to say. Like, I don't have any statistics on how that was impacted. I know just from working with businesses, working with a big brand, and my own personal use of social media, I stopped going to their websites. I stopped going to people's websites because I just found that they were not updating them as quickly as, updating, like posting on Facebook. So Facebook actually became my predominant way to see if somebody was open. When was the last time they even posted, even if it's not related to your hours, when was the last time they posted on Facebook? When was the last time, a picture of your food was uploaded to photos? Like, that's kind of what I used to gauge if people were still open or if they were doing curbside or whatever. And because even like Google My Business, like that's like you Google like, is blah, blah, blah open? And that's what comes up is their Google My Business hours. And even those weren't updated because sometimes there's a review process with Google My Business. And so, yeah, but it takes 2 seconds to say, hey, we're open noon to 5 today on Facebook. And then it's at the top of your feed. You can pin it. There you go. So I think social media really did take the burden of that responsibility of being, or where you could find things like what grocery store has water right now or whatever. You could find those things out through social media more easily than you could websites.
Yeah. Well, and for me, like, I don't want to walk in somewhere and be that guy who's not following the proper precautions or whatever that they have in place. So it's like, what are your rules? What hours are you open? Can I sit at a bar? Can I sit at a table? Like, where do I have to sit outside?
Hours because they were like the grocery stores were doing special hours for the elderly for a while and, and things like that. So yeah, it's just easier to post it on social media, and the website followed suit because now you see the websites have their COVID disclaimers all over the place, but
they're playing catch up.
They are. That's what I found.
Yeah, and that's just a symptom of small business, I think, because the DI
might not even know how to do that. They might not even know how to change the copy on their homepage to say these are our COVID parameters. And
they don't. We know that firsthand.
Oh, yeah.
Well, and let's be honest, it's much simpler to go to social media because it's immediate. You do it, you type it, you post it, it's there.
Yeah, but they still don't.
There's
quite a few that still don't.
Well, right, but the steps it takes to update your website. There's a few more steps you have to take generally. Then you have social media. It's just an immediate. You do it. It's done in a matter of seconds. I mean that sort of accounts for why. But to the larger point, they almost seem to forget. And I think in a lot of cases, we need to change the hours we've got on our website. It's like everything happened so fast. I think, and people were trying to pivot and trying to position themselves where they needed to be to maintain viability. That they did the quickest things and the easy things first, and then kind of thought, I guess now we need to go back and fix our website, or we need to go,
Yeah, it's a very secondary thought. The other thing that's been interesting too are the very localized businesses that have now reopened and might not even have a website and like the only way I have found out some restaurants are open is because I ask in like my subdivision's Facebook page. Like I'll just ask and people know because they've driven past it, but there's no website really. They don't have a strong Facebook page or something. But I communicate, I still found out that information through social media, through a Facebook group.
Or how many it's been place a business. Like if you want to if you like 4 or 5 of you want to go out to eat, can 4 or 5 of you go into the building if there's a limit on how many people can be inside? Like one of you's going to sit in the car until the other 4 of you are done eating. Like, businesses need to figure out a way to say like, okay, no vacancies, they're not really addressing that unless you call ahead.
But when they really need all of the bodies to stay in business as they can. And I feel really bad for like the restaurant and fitness industry for everything that they've had to go through this and being resourceful and because it has been hard for them.
Yeah, my local gym club, the one I had a membership to, closed. I didn't get any kind of announcement. My membership was supposed to renew, and I was going to cancel anyways. And I was like, yeah, this is going to be a pain to cancel because it usually is. So I emailed them and I was like, I need to cancel. They didn't email me back. They just stopped charging me. And I later found out that location had shut down. That's one thing on Google My Business. You touched on that. I was a little surprised that Google didn't do a better job of kind of helping people with that. Even like local McDonald's that used to be 24 hours, their hours changed, but Google didn't reflect that. And it wasn't really an outreach effort. That didn't seem like.
So there's the good thing I saw Google My Business do is they started adding like more features to the listing, like the COVID restrictions,
Mhm.
or like the wait times at doctor's offices, or yes, face masks are required. Like, they're not called attributes. I'm blanking on what they're called right now.
Yeah.
But they did those pretty quickly. But Google My Business is still a very slow process, even to get your business verified. Say
Oh,
you're
yeah.
one of these local businesses, you
Yeah.
got a website, on Squarespace because you needed one because your front doors are closed and you're trying to get things done quickly. And Google My Business has to snail mail you a postcard with a verification code
During an
3 weeks
election.
later when you've lost that kind of business. Like,
Right.
come on. And I
Mhm.
get why they do it, but yeah, they did seem to be coming out with a new attribute, or something new was happening with Google My Business kind of quickly, except for like the fundamental things like staying up to date with, and especially like you said, McDonald's. I think that's a really good example because that came down from corporate. Corporate's like 24 hours. McDonald's are now here to here. Like that wasn't. I know they have individual owners, but
Right.
McDonald's corporate made that decision.
Mhm.
And that's not a mom and pop thing where the hours can be at the whim of the owner. So McDonald's information is going to come down the search engine pike pretty easily.
Mhm.
And you're not relying on a business owner or a review person to give you this information. So for even that to take so long to be updated was very frustrating.
I know. I couldn't get my McChicken.
It was close.
Yeah. But that's kind of to the
You
broader
should be
point. It's
going
like,
at 3 a.m. and eating McChickens anyway.
I'm going to edit that part.
Yeah.
I'm just going to edit that part where John says, I couldn't get my McChicken. And I'm
when
going to
you have
put
a
that.
2-year-old and a newborn, you eat McChickens at 3 a.m. if that's what has to be.
But I'm going to put that little snippet of audio everywhere I can.
What they do
What an
need,
NFT.
what McDonald's in particular needs on their Google My Business pages is whether or not the milkshake machine is broken. They need a little icon that
There you
says
go.
it's broken at
There
this
you go.
location. Go to Dairy Queen.
Or if
There
you're in the South, we're out of sweet tea.
We all know it's always broken. So
You just give up after a while.
Go to Dairy Queen anyway. It's probably a better
Go to Dairy
milkshake
Queen
anyway.
anyway.
I got to give credit for John for typing up this question. I'll read it and we'll close we'll probably end the show on that note. With the rise of Snapchat and TikTok, expansion of YouTube into the living room, and the squeeze ongoing virtual in 2020, can we say video is even more valuable than before? Are people more comfortable on video now compared to before the pandemic?
People are a little too comfortable on video, if you ask me, but the answer would be yes on the comfortability thing. I mean, we're all on video now. Every meeting we have is Zoom or Google Hangouts. We are all comfortable on video. But not just TikTok and Snapchat and YouTube, but we've got going live on Twitter. You can go live on on LinkedIn. You can do live on Instagram. Like you can be live and in person on your social media platform regardless. So video is incredibly valuable. And those platforms made those shifts because they saw people consuming video content. We like people, I think, naturally. And sometimes I think reading is a pain in the neck. Like I work with copy all day long. I don't read books.
right.
I read blogs. I listen to podcasts. I stay educated. I read social content. I'm on LinkedIn a lot. But I get tired of reading. So I can't be the only one, right? So
No.
Video content I think is extremely valuable. And you get what you don't get from words is you don't get the personality. You don't get the person behind this content. And we are in this personality-based marketing world where you have to have a personality that can connect and resonate with your audience. And sometimes that's harder to do in strictly text-based content. You kind of need the videos to back up and make that relationship stronger, because it is going to be a relationship if that person's going to be part of their community, right?
Right.
Yeah.
That's why I started.
So yeah,
I started getting latched on to video email about a year ago. That started coming up and everything, and then the pandemic happened, but I started picking it back up again and using it. And I just sent somebody something with a review of their site, like I said before. I think it gives them a little bit more, because I started typing up, and I'm not the aficionado at typing up emails. Like if I type something up, John's going to completely rewrite it because he's way better at it. And but then I started doing it, and I'm like, first of all, it was a friend of mine, so I could be a little loose with it anyway. But I was like, you know what? I think they'll kind of get why I'm what I'm saying a little bit more by watching it. And then it had my face, and of course, it had the screen as I was demoing. Whoops, sorry, almost blocked the microphone there. Demoing the site, right? So they could see, and so they kind of understood like why I was doing what I was doing. Yeah, I think it's a very powerful platform for just communication now. It's
Well,
it's hard, but it's not as easy to do as I think that some people may think when they first approach it.
marketing is successful if you hit an emotional chord and strike you get an emotional resonance from people. That's what causes them to act. Throwing all the facts in the world at them doesn't make them do anything. You have to make them feel something. Video does that far better than just words, which, I grew up in the print world, print and broadcast, but in the print world, and there's value to that. But the value of video is just that you can paint a much more vivid picture for people, who you are, what you do, what you're about, what you care about, what they should care about, what's going to make them happy, what's going to satisfy them. You can show them.
Yes.
You can show them.
You can
in living
show,
color.
not tell.
Right. And they can hear it. They hear it. They see it. I still believe in the value of audio and I mean, radio, if you will, and that because the theater of the mind can be a wonderful thing. But so anything is better than just words on a page.
Yeah.
Generally, to all my print friends out there, if they're still out there, I'm sorry. I still love you. You still have your place.
No, well, I mean, the power of the word is still there. I mean, novels are still bought and sold and printed like crazy because you have the power of your imagination with that. I mean, they're not illustrated. So you have the power of the word is absolutely still there. And words absolutely matter, as we have seen also throughout this pandemic. And in combination with video, your words through your videos matter. And we've just gotten to a really great creative space where we can use video to be self-expressive, but as a branding tactic, and still have personality and still be creative, but not be limited by the keyword I'm targeting. I'm not now the copy on my page isn't focused on XYZ keywords. My topic for this video can be focused around those things, but now we can have some fun and we can have a more tactile experience rather than reading through bullet points and things like that. So there's a lot of power in both, but you got to know your audience. And but video is really fun.
And
Words are fun too. I do like writing copy.
Words are fun. It's like Sesame Street.
And I'm with you, Diane.
Right.
One of the first principle of any good marketing is you got to pick your words first. You got to pick the right words to say about your brand, about who you are, about your value. The words come first, but the palette that video offers for painting those words, painting that picture, expressing that idea, there's nothing else like it. And it's multi-platform. It can work on television, over the top, streaming, web, social. It's all purpose. So I could go on and on.
One of the things that I've really loved about TikTok is the creativity of non-marketers and marketers, but the people are so freaking creative. And it's fascinating to watch that. It's fascinating to watch that from a human perspective, I think. And
a new generation of like film directors and producers,
Yes.
It's a different style of video that, people, when TikTok very first, which it still is in its infancy, but when it very first hit the scene and really got in the headlines, people were like, it's gonna fizzle out. And it may as a platform fizzle out.
Dances like that's what it is.
The point is, for brands, that style of content and that delivery of video is not going anywhere. It may shift to a different platform, but it's fundamentally changed the way people expect a story to be told in video, with quick snaps and quick edits and cuts, and then the way it's done. It's influential big time already.
As a little bit of an aside, I think this is kind of the direction Vine was headed anyway, until what was it? Was it didn't Twitter buy Vine?
I don't know if they They owned it at some point. I don't know if they started it or if they.
Well, no, I don't think they started. I think they bought it I think they bought the platform once it became successful. Then basically they killed it.
Yeah, because they had Periscope and they wanted that one to succeed. So that was yeah.
So basically, to me, I told my daughter, my youngest daughter, because when TikTok first hit, and I looked at it and thought, this is the next generation of Vine.
Well, anyways, that was a great conversation. Thank you, Diana, for being on the show.
Thanks for having me. I can't wait to see what actually makes it into the episode. We've talked for a long time.
You'd be surprised. I got plenty of material here. I got plenty of stuff to work with.
Maybe it can be a two-parter.
Yeah, well, it's come up where we probably need to, work on doing a show that's long enough that we can kind of do part 1, part 2. So for all those out there listening, go ahead one more time. Tell them where they can find you.
You can find me on the Twitter. If you search my name, Diana Richardson, or my handle, DianaRich013, because 13 is my lucky number. On LinkedIn, you can do a search for me as well. Again, it's my full name, but there is a wine glass next to my name, just so you know it's me. And follow SEMrush. SEMrush is SEMrush everywhere. That's SEMRUSH. Or as my shirt says, because I finally got a new shirt with our new logo.
With the new logo.
Yes, because we rebranded in December, remember?
Yes.
Yep.
Yeah. And you had you guys are on the stock market. Y'all nasty.
We are. We went public a couple weeks ago.
Yeah.
That's all you have to say about it.
That's really, yeah.
Oh, yeah. Oh, I think we went public the day after we talked, actually.
I saw it in a blog post when we did the pre-interview, and I was like, oh, well, you can't talk about it, but it's on your blog.
All right, everybody. Thank you for listening. Thank you for watching. Again, find us at NerdBrand Agency everywhere on the internet. You can go to nerdbrandagency.com/podcast to watch this episode when it comes out on Friday mornings, as every other episode always does on Friday mornings. And thanks, everybody, for listening. And remember, keep your nerd brand strong.